Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into what is probably one of a homeowner's absolute worst nightmares. What happens when water gets into your house? And, more importantly, the actual science professionals use to bring everything back under control.
So let's just paint the picture. You walk downstairs and find your basement is flooded. It's a scenario nobody wants to even think about, right? But whether it's a burst pipe or a sump pump that just gave up, your home can turn into a disaster zone in minutes. Knowing what to do next? Well, that's everything.
And really, it all kicks off with this number, 48. You have 48 hours before a simple water problem spirals into something way, way worse.
That's exactly right. After just 2 days in a damp, humid space, mold spores, which, are basically everywhere all the time, can start to grow and colonize. And just like that, you've gone from a water problem to a potential health hazard that's a whole lot more complicated and expensive to fix. The clock is literally ticking.
Okay, so the very first step is just recognizing the signs that water is doing damage, even if you don't see a giant flood, because a lot of the time the problem starts out really sneaky.
These are kind of like the quiet little red flags. Things like your baseboards looking a little puffy, or that weird musty smell you can't quite place. That means moisture has already gotten inside your walls and floors and is causing damage where you can't even see it.
But here's the good news. There is a clear, scientific way to fix all of this. See, professionals don't just show up with a bunch of fans and mops. They follow a very specific, structured process that's broken down into 3 main phases. Think of this as the roadmap from total chaos back to normal. It's a system, and every step has a purpose. So let's actually break down what each of these really means. All right, phase 1 is all about triage. First things first, stop the water at its source. Then, you get all that standing water out, fast, using these powerful, industrial-grade pumps. This part also means tearing out stuff that's just too far gone to save, like soaked carpet padding. There's no drying that out. Now, this is where the real science kicks in. Just because the floor feels dry doesn't mean the inside of your walls are. So, crews set up these huge air movers and commercial dehumidifiers to create a powerful drying vortex. And they don't just guess, they use moisture meters every single day to track the progress until every single material is back to a safe, dry level.
And only when the meters prove everything is completely dry, then the rebuilding can start. This is the part where your house starts to look like a house again. We're talking new drywall, new floors, fresh paint. The goal is to make it look like the flood never even happened. Let's dig a little deeper into the science behind all this. Because to really get why this professional process is so important, you have to understand one critical thing. Not all water is created equal. You see, pros classify water into 3 categories based on where it came from. Category 1, that's clean water, say from a broken water supply line. Category 2, or gray water, is a little dirty. Think a washing machine overflow. But Category 3, black water, that's the really nasty stuff. We're talking sewage or flowed water from outside. And each category requires totally different safety gear and cleanup procedures.
Here's another key distinction you'll hear people make: mitigation versus restoration. Mitigation is the emergency response. It's all about stopping the bleeding and preventing the damage from getting worse. Restoration is the rebuilding phase. The best way to think about it is this: mitigation is the emergency room, and restoration is the surgery and recovery that follows.
And it all comes down to data. Professionals aren't guessing. They're using those moisture meters to make sure the wood framing in your house is below 16% moisture content. That's the magic number. They won't even think about rebuilding until they hit that target, because that's how you prevent mold from growing inside your walls later on.
Okay, so let's shift gears to the part that really puts you back in the driver's seat. How to actually work with your insurance company to get this whole thing paid for.
Think of this as your playbook for a much, much smoother claims process. The big takeaways here: act fast and document everything. I mean everything. Take pictures, take videos, and get a professional restoration company on the phone early.
Of course, it is so important to understand what your policy actually covers. Most standard policies are designed for sudden and accidental events, like that burst pipe. What they often don't cover is damage from slow, gradual leaks, which they see as a maintenance problem, or major flooding from groundwater, which actually requires a totally separate flood insurance policy. All right, before we wrap this up, we have to talk about the big mistakes to avoid. When you're in a panic, it is so easy to do something that can make the situation 100 times more dangerous or expensive.
First and foremost, safety. I cannot stress this enough. Water and electricity are a lethal combination.
The risk of electrocution is incredibly real. You have to assume the power is live unless you are 100% sure the breaker has been shut off.
It might seem tempting, I get it, but please, do not do this. Your regular shop vac is not built for that amount of water. It can get overwhelmed in seconds and turn into a serious electrical shock hazard. Just don't risk it.
And here we are, right back where we started. Remember that 48-hour clock? Every single minute you wait, you're letting that water soak deeper and deeper into the bones of your house. And that just means more damage, more cost, and a much bigger risk of mold.
So in the end, understanding this whole process really does change things. You go from being a victim of this awful crisis to being an informed manager of your home's recovery. It shows that the right response isn't just about cleaning up a mess, it's about using science to take back control.